Live from the Mirage Sportsbook in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, it is the Behind the Book sports betting series. Gil Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, along with the Vice President of Race and Sports at MGM Resorts International, Jay Rood. Hello, Jay.
How's it going, Gil?
Going well. This is the time of year where it gets really awesome. Not just pro football, but we have our first college football playoff rankings of the season.
Yeah.
Love it.
Big surprise, I thought there.
Really?
Absolutely. I still believe they should have a Vegas representative on that council.
That they should. Maybe we'll get into that. Ask the Pro coming up. Your questions for Jay, anything you want to ask him, he's kind enough to answer, as well as 3 NFL games, the Panthers and the Falcons, the Dolphins taking on the Oakland Raiders, and of course, the other one, the Cowboys and the Chiefs. But we all get it going with Bedlam, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma coming up on this week's Behind the Book. The college football playoff rankings are out for the first time this season, and Georgia gets number 1, Alabama 2, Notre Dame 3, and Clemson at 4. But we have a 5-11 matchup, probably the marquee college football matchup of the weekend in a great college football weekend. Really great matchups: TCU, Texas, Miami, Tech, Clemson, NC State. But nothing like Bedlam, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State favored by 3 with reduced juice. Where do you think the money comes here?
Yeah, I think this game is going to be, from a bookie's perspective, we're going to need the home team, Oklahoma State, -3. I think, the public really likes Oklahoma. They like Baker Mayfield. He's a little bit stronger brand than Mason Rudolph right now. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's a perception there that you're probably, if you're backing Mayfield, you're backing maybe the better quarterback. I don't know if that's true or not. Statistically, that's your category to run down. But I think, yeah, we're probably going to be rooting for Oklahoma State in this spot.
Looks that way, and as we talked about last week, just because Oklahoma has that 5 in front of them and Oklahoma State has the 11, the casual bettor very much influenced by that. As far as the college football rankings in general, you were mentioning you're not real thrilled with them. What is your beef?
Well, it's not that I'm not thrilled. It's just I think they got it wrong. I think Alabama's clearly the number 1 team in the nation. I think Georgia's got a lot to learn. They got a freshman that still has to go through a championship game. I think, in order for Alabama to be displaced from that number 1 ranking, there should be something more substance than what's going on. And I think definitely Vegas should have a representative on that committee to be the voice of reason, to tell them pump the brakes a little bit when maybe they get off road just a tad bit.
Yeah. Why that hasn't happened, Jay, I can't imagine why.
I can't either.
But the market speaks volumes and is usually right. As far as this Oklahoma State game, remember that as great as these offenses are, last week the defenses shined through in their respective games. Oklahoma holding Texas Tech to just 7 points in the final 3 quarters, and Oklahoma State, they did a number on West Virginia, holding the Mountaineers to about 200 yards fewer than West Virginia is used to gaining in any given game. One would think that in handicapping this game, that's where the answer lies. Which of these defenses shows up?
Yeah, which one's going to show up? Because both defenses are going to be basically facing the same type of offense that they just faced last week. So, you could almost look to last week and take some handicapping clues off of that and to apply to this game. We
shall see. Oklahoma State, nothing like Bedlam. Cowboys favored by 3, reduced juice. Come on down, bet it at the Mirage and at any MGM property here on the Strip. NFL time on Behind the Book, the show where we actually go behind the book, behind it, and squeeze information out of the Vice President of Race and Sports here at MGM International, Jay Rood. Let's talk Atlanta at Carolina, Jay. The Falcons and the Panthers. Panthers half game out in the NFC South. Atlanta a full game out behind the New Orleans Saints in the NFC South. What do we really know about these two teams, though? Atlanta coming off a couple bad games in which they lost, then in the rain, just get by the Jets, do cover in the process if you got the line early in the week, but do not if you get the close. And then Carolina, schizophrenic from one week to another. Yes, they beat the Bucs this past week, but then they trade Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, then they trade like the only guy that's out there catching passes. So,
what do you make of this game, and what are bettors making of it?
I think, it's a hard game to handicap, that's for sure. That's why it's kind of, almost a pick'em game at this point. Atlanta is burning money for a lot of players this season. A lot of chalk players that the Falcons have been just tearing up tickets left and right. Kind of the same can be said for Carolina a little bit. I think a lot of people, this is probably going to be one of the the lowest handle games that we're going to have on the board this week. I think a lot of people might just stay away because they don't know which way to actually lean here because, you know, the lesser of two evils is still evil.
Yes, and if we haven't stressed this enough, the main thing that we can possibly convey is the biggest advantage that a bettor has over a bookmaker is that Jay has to post a line for every single game, every sport. As a bettor, we can pick and choose. We can be selective. And this game, Atlanta at Carolina, with the Panthers as 1-point favorites as we do this, might be a game to just steer clear of.
Yeah, it could be. You know, I mean, yeah, it's a game that, you know, a lot of people I don't think are going to have strong opinions on, but it could be a game that some people do have strong opinions. If this is the division that you follow and you feel like you've got a handle on it,
yeah,
I might have someone come out of the woodwork and just fire away on this game. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, being able to cherry pick is the biggest thing. Like today, I was working on bull riding odds for, you know, the PBR instead of focusing on football.
Wow, what a sexy job you have, Jay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Do you trust Cam Newton as the quarterback of the Panthers? Do you trust the Falcons offense with Steve Sarkisian as the offensive coordinator instead of Kyle Shanahan? Those are the questions
you have to. Not in the second half.
No, absolutely not in the second half, as we saw not only in the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan, but certainly this year with Steve Sarkisian. Carolina at Atlanta, or I should say Atlanta at Carolina. Panthers, 1-point favorites. I'm staying away. See what you do. Time for the Ask the Pro segment, my favorite segment on the Behind the Book series, brought to you by Play MGM. This time, Jay, they're asking me a question on Twitter.
I was going to say, yeah, it's kind of flipped. It's ask the guys.
Yeah, but we're going to have you chime in on this.
Okay.
The question is as follows. Is there ever a team, talking NFL now, that is just so off the charts bad that they're analytics proof? What
Browns.
A great question. I would answer that by letter of the law, no, because we're dealing with math. But in practice, let's just take the Cleveland Browns. Good Lord, it doesn't matter how many points they're catching. It just seems like they can never get there. And no one saw this more clearly than you did last year. You needed the Browns all the time. It never worked out for you.
Right, all the time. I mean, every week we need the Browns. And I always, you know, I mean, they score an early touchdown once in a while, and you feel like there's some hope, and then they crush your dreams. But I mean, it's not even, you know, necessarily the performance on the field. I mean, they missed a great opportunity to trade for A.J. McCarron.
Yes.
And they missed it by not getting the paperwork in on time. They're like 2 minutes late.
Too busy celebrating, they said.
So, I mean, it's a very trickle-down kind of thing, I think, or trickle up or sideways or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Cleveland Browns, ineptitude, they may be that team. Now, you can't bet on the Browns this week because they're on a bye, but are you willing to put your hard-earned cash behind them? I would say that would be my answer to that question. They might just be analytics proof. Ask the Pro each and every week. Ask questions via Twitter or all throughout social media. Jay Rood, happy to answer them. Ask the Pro, brought to you by Play MGM. Such a good game in the afternoon this coming Sunday, Week 9 in the NFL between the Chiefs and the Cowboys. This is at Dallas. Chiefs coming off a win, that after a 2-game losing streak. So the Chiefs are 6-2. They're doing very well right now. Once again, great season for the Chiefs. Cowboys get a win over their rival Redskins, so they are now back on the good side of things. But here's the story with this game. There's one overriding narrative, and that is, and it's been going on all week long, all season long, will Ezekiel Elliott be in the lineup for the Cowboys, or is the suspension finally happening? Is he finally going to start serving that? And as of this recording, we don't know quite yet, but it looks like the suspension will start. And so the question to you, Jay, becomes, what does Ezekiel Elliott mean to a line? Right now, this is a pick'em.
Right now, it's a pick'em, and this is what we call a circle game in the business, right? I mean, there's such a strong variable here that could go one way or the other that we are really playing this close to the vest. We're going to, you know, have tight limits on this. You know, we're really going to scrutinize who's betting this game because who's getting information that maybe we're not privy to. So, you know, anything like that. You know, we've got our service that, you know, scouring Twitter, Snapchat, hashtag, whatever, you know, telling us when they find some information on this, because information is going to be key on this game. You know, if for some reason it's reversed, it's upheld, whatever it is. But, you know, because Ezekiel Elliott is probably the most important person to the line besides a quarterback of anybody in the NFL right now. And we're talking, you know, probably 4 points, 3.5 to 4 points for sure, influencing on this line.
So that pick'em is assuming he is not playing.
It's assuming he is not playing at this point.
But if somehow information comes out, and by the way, how hardening is that to know that a bookmaker of Jay's status doesn't necessarily have access to that information any quicker than you might. That's a good thing to know.
Many times not.
Many times not. So if Zeke is out, it's a pick 'em. If suddenly you find out he's playing, and we'll all kind of find out at the same time with the appellate system, maybe you get to that line before a guy like Jay can actually change it. And when you say it's a circle game, I think that's interesting as well. Doesn't mean you're taking it off the board, just means that you're limiting action and watching it very closely.
Proceeding with caution.
Proceeding like a yellow flashing light.
Right. So this game, we will be proceeding with caution through the intersection. And we still could get T-boned on it, but we're gonna be dealing it, as you said.
Still could get T-boned like a yellow flashing light, and you as a bettor might want to proceed with caution as well. Right now, Kansas City at Dallas, it is a pick-em pending the Ezekiel Elliott news. Total is at 50.5. All right, Sunday Night Football in NFL week number 9. Always Sunday night, pretty much always. The game that will be the biggest decision for you at the sportsbook.
Yes.
And we've talked about different things on the show already today. The ability of bettors to be selective in what they play. Also, what does a player like Ezekiel Elliott mean to a line? I think this game between the Raiders and the Dolphins has so many different betting concepts in it. First of all, Raiders 3-point road favorites at Miami Sunday night. One of those things is no team is as bad as they look one week or as good as they look one week.
Yep.
And the Dolphins could not have looked worse last Thursday night when they lose to the Ravens, 40-0. They're not that bad, are they?
They're not that bad. I mean, coming off a 3-game, win streak, they just ran into, just an ugly spot. I mean, those Thursday night games can be an ugly spot. Teams tend to produce, maybe their worst performance of the year on those Thursday night short weeks. But, in this particular spot, you've got Oakland, who's staying on the East Coast,
Yes.
to minimize the travel situation.
We're at Buffalo last week, staying.
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean, they were
Miami
down
game.
in Miami, went up to Buffalo, came back down to Miami. So, you don't have necessarily that angle to factor into it. You've got Marshawn Lynch coming back. So, but laying points in the NFL is always kind of a dangerous thing, even as short of the price as a field goal. But, I think this has got an opportunity to really drive home the point that what you saw last week isn't necessarily what's going to translate this week.
I'm on the Dolphins. I'll be honest with you. If I'm getting 3 at home, I see no reason why the Raiders are 3-point favorites on the road. And the other narrative that you'll hear is the Dolphins, they got rid of Jay Ajayi, their starting running back this week, for a 4th-round pick. They sent him to Philly. And so the buzz, the mainstream media will say, oh my goodness, here's this key cog that the Dolphins got rid of. The truth is that Jay Ajayi was only averaging 3.3 yards a carry, and that last year, even when he was gaining 1,200 yards, he was one of these home run hitting backs. So to simplify it, if he had 10 carries, 8 of them were like for 2 yards. The 9th he would hit a home run, and then the 10th he'd go back to gaining 2 yards. So the Dolphins kind of hip to the limitations of Jay Ajayi. Not as big of a loss as you might assume going into this game.
No, I think most coaches probably want a grinded out production rather than the home run hitter kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you got a passing game.
Yeah.
But, I think this is going to be a classic split, right? Public's going to be all over the road favorite, and I think the Sharps are probably going to look and take value with the home dog here a little bit, coming off of a little extra rest,
Yeah.
and probably a very ugly performance.
Should be interesting Sunday night. Oakland at Miami. Oakland 3-point favorites. I am on the Dolphins large. We wrap up each and every Behind the Book with our stats of the week and what Jay is watching. First of all, stats of the week, one micro, one macro. That Raiders-Dolphins game on Sunday night. Raiders, first team since 1950 to not record one single interception in the first 8 weeks of a season.
Oh, Al Davis is turning over in his grave on
Got
that.
it.
He was all about the interception.
All about the takeaway. Raiders have got to do something if they want any hope in this game at Miami. They got to buck that trend. And the other one, more of a macro thing, Week 8 in the NFL, and this applied to Week 7 as well, but Week 8, favorites, 11-1 straight up,
Yeah.
and 8-4-1, no, make that 7-4-1, I believe, against the spread. Crazy. Favorites getting it done. Square bettors love that, but the Sharps not so much.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a pendulum swing, right? Early in the season, it was a little bit better mix.
Yeah.
Now the favorites are starting to swing a little bit harder here last couple weeks of October. We'll see if that's sustainable.
What are you watching? Because we're about at the midway point of the season now.
Yeah, we're kind of watching that. I mean, maybe there's some teams that need to tweak their power rating a little bit. Like the Eagles right now. I mean, they came in as sort of maybe a middle of the road team. What are they going to do? They got Carson Wentz, who's performing well.
Yeah.
He's really stepped up and taken control of that team. So I think we could be lagging a little bit behind on that power rating, and it could be, you know, putting a nice spot for players to capitalize on that. There's other teams that maybe we've given too much credit to.
Like?
Denver.
Oh, yeah.
You know, their defense. We keep thinking their defense is going to keep them in it, but their offense keeps killing them. So, you know, I mean, you need to blend the power rating a little bit better and, you know, get a better adjustment. And, you know, I think that's that time of the year where, you know, the teams sort of show who they are. I mean, if you're 3-4, you're probably a sub-500 team.
Yeah.
If you're 5-2, you're probably going to remain a above 500 team and contend for a playoff spot. You know, this is the Dennis Green theory. You are who we thought you are.
Mm-hmm. Dennis Green, the former Vikings and Cardinals coach. And the Broncos, yeah, that thing about the defense, you're only great unless you're on the field all game long.
Yeah.
And the Broncos solution, replacing Trevor Siemian with the great Brock Osweiler, coming up in Week 9.
See how that works out.
For Jay Rood, the Vice President of Racing Sports here at MGM Resorts International, and come down and say hello to Jay here at the Mirage. He loves that. He loves when
I actually
we
do
that.
love that.
Yes.
I like talking to people at the
He does.
counter.
Gil Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Thanks so much for tuning in once again to Behind the Book.